Friends, colleagues and listeners, still here in Seville, and you can tell by the same clothes that myself and Lothar are wearing that these episodes are being churned out thick and fast, but enjoying it and glad we split them up, so we've been able to give a little bit more time to this really, really interesting and critical subject matter, Lothar, so really appreciated. Just to remind everybody, Lothar Holder, Head of Airport Technology and Board Member of Goldhofer, and the subject matter we're looking at now is benefits of GSE. This is episode 3 of 4, and the subject is how safe is electric GSE? Now, safety, Lothar, you know, and especially working with Lufthansa, safety is critical.
Absolutely.
And there are so many reports now, and now that we've got all this different social media, you can't escape anything. And if anything, if people are looking at risk assessments or worst case scenarios, the PR or the social media impact on your business and your products can be devastating. So it's important that everybody gets it right. Now, safety. With the influx recently of videos showing what's happening with children's scooters and other mechanisms, and what happens if they overheat, and batteries, and if they swell and sweat and all these other issues, nobody really knows, and they don't appreciate that there is different qualities and production technique of the same battery, shall we say, description. So what I'd like just for you to explain is how and why meeting the highest safety standards. So, for instance, the batteries, how they've been tested for fire safety, mechanical influence, thermal influence, vibration, short circuit, overcharging, discharging, overheating, all the usual suspects. How important is that, and how do you address that?
You mentioned, Chris, and I think it's extremely important. I mean, with conventional tractors, we also have seen incidents like a tractor catching fire, destroying even the aircraft. So this is not a new topic with batteries, I must say that. So we have seen quite a few of these incidents also with conventional drivetrains. But absolutely, I mean, safety is the highest priority in that industry, and again brings me back to our strategy, which I explained a little bit in the previous session. Our strategy is, to apply standards that are widely used in other industries where safety is as important as in the airline industry. And this is basically when you talk about public transport, where human lives are involved. And this is why we selected partners that are extremely successful and active in these industries. Yeah. So we are not manufacturing batteries, so we just can rely on processes, procedures, and the innovation capabilities of companies that do manufacture batteries. And I think that's one of the key elements. Safety is key. If you would like to achieve the highest safety levels, you have to work with partners that are certified, that work with the highest safety standards that are available in the industry. You mentioned all of the different tests that go on there, and some of these companies have applied, but I think for our customers it's extremely important to first of all understand that, and secondly actively request and ask for these issues. I'm pretty sure there are quite a few applications out there where, let's try battery electric, sounds good. That's, let's say, the dynamics we see at the moment, but I'm not so sure with a lot of young and fresh and new players in the field whether these aspects really have been taken into consideration, It's important, Chris, because for instance, Goldhofer, we would be too small, to pay for all the necessary funds to do all these certifications.
Exactly.
We have to rely on partners, that have the capability, the financial strength to go through all these.
And the desire. And the desire to be recognized. Exactly.
Exactly, yeah. And I think this is from my perspective, this is a little bit a missing link right now in our industry, that we do not have a clear regulation there on which standards are really mandatory for equipment to be used, to be applied in our highest safety environment in the aviation industry. So I think that's something we have to work for, because we have to make sure that none of these good approaches, nice approaches, do any harm to the reputation of our industry. And as you said today, with social media, every incident is widely recognized.
Out before it's controlled.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So this is a key element. This is a key element. Yeah,
100%. And also, dare I say, this is one of those products that, for procurement or anybody who's considering, like, I'm under pressure to get in electric. So this is not something that really, at this stage, the price should be one of the key drivers, because the impacts could be disastrous. I 100% agree. The regulatory guidelines are desperately necessary. But something else I wanted to say: you're talking about a few companies that you deal with that you recognise as having a key focus. So we've already given a shout out to Lufthansa, 100%. I take it it's okay to recognise the couple. So Weberstow and Akasol. So fair play to them, as you said, for investing correctly, focusing correctly, and having the ethical desire to be at the forefront. Now, when we're talking about various standards, so you're looking at the ECE R100s and also the ISO series 6469, 26262. I mean, all of those stand for a lot of things, and those of us that have been in the industry for a long time, we've moved from BS 5750 to 9001, then 14001 has come in, 45,000. So people are used to these, but they're also getting a little bit fatigued by all of these. So again, something as sensitive as this, I think, needs a resurgence, a new modern PR campaign, so that people realise why all of these things are in play the way they are. It's so important. And a terrible incident happened in the UK and London with the cladding on apartments. And you've probably seen it. You've probably seen it all over the news. The ramifications and impacts of that have been, they've just caused so many problems for so many people. But the public and so many of those people that have been affected, the question is, why did people allow that to happen? And we mustn't let this sector have the same history repeated. God forbid in the future if something catastrophic happened, and especially, not saying any other industry is different, because if it affects lives, it affects lives. But when you look at ours, the volumes and the rotations of those, people on aircraft, and the expense of the equipment and the asset values, I mean, we must never be in a situation where somebody says, why did they allow that to happen? Why wasn't a proper risk assessment done? Why wasn't there regulatory guidelines? Why wasn't there an official manual that everybody could see? And they mustn't be frightened of having a little conflict with organisations who are fast-tracking or bypassing some of these critical ingredients. Safety cannot be compromised.
No, I fully agree. And for Goldhofer, I mean, it's I mentioned a little bit about the background of Goldhofer, being 100% family trust company, so with a high standard for social responsibility. For us, for me initially, it was clear when we go that way into the new technology, we have to apply the higher standards there. But you won't believe, Chris, the number of tenders I look at in my organization where people are asking for electric equipment, and I hardly don't see any of these specifications that would require certification procedures, give a clear guideline on what has to be certified. So what are the key elements on electronics, on the base vehicle? We also do apply active and passive fire protection measures on our vehicles, but you don't find that in tender specifications, and that at some point always, this all costs money.
Yep.
I think at the end you pay for what you get for, and I think it's extremely important to make people aware of that, and that's what we try to do. Again, it's not about right or wrong. I don't want to talk negative about other equipments I see in the market, but I think it's our joint responsibility to make the customers aware of, because most of our customers don't have any experience with that new technology.
Exactly.
So they are learning, and they are looking for qualified partners who help them learning, and partners they can trust. What we do quite often in our sales activities or in tenders, we show videos of our battery manufacturers where they went through the different test procedures. So
that's it. That's valuable.
To see is to believe.
Exactly.
And to show them how can that happen, what will happen, and what do they do against it to make it, to avoid it to the highest possible standard.
Yep.
I think that's extremely important, because we are not just selling equipment anymore. We are still a little bit on a missionary statement, because this is all new, this is all fresh. Nobody has historical data. Nobody has a vast experience about this new technology. So we have to build trust. And building trust, I think, starts with safety, because this is 100%. The highest priority in that industry.
Yeah.
Second one is efficiency, as we mentioned
yeah.
before. And those are the two elements you have to somehow prove, even if there is no real historical data.
Yes.
And that, in our opinion, works. Building this trust works with showing how our partners do all these test procedures, and
yep.
how do they get their certificates, and I think that really makes a difference.
100%. And change to trust is better than incident influencing change, because then you're forced into it, which is absolutely crazy.
Yep.
And again, there's nothing worse than having an incident. Would have, could have, should have. It's a terrible, terrible thing.
Yep.
And I like what you said about seeing is believing, and the respecting the accreditation criteria is so important. Now, I just want to ask you one other question. You mentioned about tugs catching fire and various GSE equipment catching fire. Have you considered also putting fire containment units into some of the vehicles?
We do have active fire protection devices into the tractors. Some of our customers actually do require that. Lufthansa, for instance,
Yeah.
And what is also very important in that aspect, you mentioned it in one of the previous sessions. Fire brigades. This is what do we need to do? We talked about change of the business model, and
they're contradicting it.
These guys need to be involved, because they have to come up with a regime on how to deal with potential problems in that new technology. So this is also another element. When we talk to our customers, we tell them, okay, everybody needs to be on board. We have several stakeholders. We don't talk about all the infrastructure requirements and problems we see there. But again, also on the safety level, we have different stakeholders, and we need to make sure that these people do understand the technology, that these people know how we did the battery selection process. These guys have to see the videos, and then of course they have to live up to these standards. So what is required to potentially get along or control a fire if an incident occurs? Because sooner or later we will see we will see one. So that's going to happen.
They would be my prime first approach. I would be looking to convert them into enablers rather than blockers. And if you go with them and they understand it, because they're the ones who are going to give the advice and guidelines to all the airport authorities anyhow. So that's where I would go first. Knowledge and awareness, and get them on get them backing us up. So again, thank you so much. Good clarity there of how important it is. And another few minutes and we'll kick off the last and final episode.
Looking forward to. Thank you.
Thank you.